and whatnot. And he lived with him for a while. And somewhere along the line, Raymond went over to Nashville, caught a ride over there, stayed with somebody. Some old man over there let him stay with him a few days, and he was walking on the back streets there of Nashville in those days, and the old white frame houses that they often, the little publishing companies would set up their headquarters and little recording companies. And he heard this music, and he came to the door and looked in, and it was Bill Monroe and his band in there. And they were going to cut a record, and they saw him, and Bill says, "Son, come in." And so he come in and said, Can you play a guitar? And he said, "Yeah." And he said, "Make me a good clear D chord to see what you can do with it." And Raymond was a born genius, so I'm sure he gave him more than a D chord. He ended up standing in for the guitar player that did not show for the recording. So the recording was recorded, but Raymond was not given credit. He said he was 11 years old on the label, of course, and you fast forward on into the future. Raymond was playing. He was on the billing at the Bean Blossom Festival, and he asked Bill Monroe. Oh, by the way, when Raymond did the picking back there in Nashville, after he stood in and played the guitar, Bill gave him a quarter. A quarter he gave Raymond, and Raymond went on his way. But later in Bean Blossom, Indiana festival, he asked Bill, he said, "Hey, Bill, you remember when I was a kid and come in there and played on that record with you and you gave me a quarter?" And Bill says, "No, I don't reckon I remember that, but if I give you one," said, "hold on to it, it'll be worth something one day, Raymond." And that's all he said. As Raymond told me the story personally. And so Raymond died fairly recently, maybe a couple, less than 2 years ago. A genius himself. Anybody wants to put that, want to check on him, he's got a ton of stuff on YouTube and just under Raymond Fairchild. He played at Nashville. He's been on Tom T. Hall's show. He was taken in by Roy Acuff, kind of under his wing. At one time, Roy gave him some gold rings, and one of those gold rings, a friend of mine, contractor Don Poteet, got to know Raymond really well, and then he looked on Don like a son, and he actually let him have one of those rings that Roy Acuff had given him, before he died and whatnot. But that's the story he told me about Bill Monroe. And but Raymond was a very interesting man. He has played with everybody and his brother, Ralph Stanley, and recorded with everybody and his brother. He had 2 gold records. That little boy that got that quarter in Nashville went on to have 2 gold records on the wall, and probably sold 3 million or more records overall before he was through just playing the banjo, not singing necessarily. But
how'd you meet him or learn of him? Because you were a banjo player and you'd retired out of the Navy, or what?
Well, the way I met him was when I was teaching in Dalton. And my friend Don Poteet from Dalton here, he had been down to the Wink Theater. He knew Raymond was going to be down there, and he wanted to hear him. And so he went down there and saw some of the magic that Raymond could do on the banjo. And he just fell in love with it, and he contacted me to give him lessons. And so we became hard friends and banjo pickers together for years after that. But Don went on to visit a lot with Raymond Fairchild in the mountains, and a lot of times my wife and I would go over with Don and his wife Pam and stay over the weekend. And sometimes, we'd kind of pick around with Raymond over there too. We got to know him pretty well, but he was an interesting man. He was kind of a introverted, shy type man, but extremely talented man. He was a genius, and he played guitar and banjo, and he could play with anybody. He's
well, I respect y'all both. I had a banjo and a fiddle and a mandolin and several guitars, but my husband got sick with real bad cancer, diabetes, and he pawned them all in Central City where he was going to dialysis, but that was okay. But somebody's getting all that equipment. Me and my husband played in Nashville and wrote songs, and I may, at the end of this show, I may put Bluegrass Train A-Comin' on it if you don't care, on the end of this show.
Great. That's great. I'm glad to hear you're a musician. That's wonderful. That's great. Looking through your background, it's extensive, Teresa. I commend you for it.
Well, I commend you. You've got 15 more years on me right now. Let's see, I'll be 70, and when will you be 85?
I'll be 85 if the Lord keeps me until April. The April 11th was a good vintage year, 1937.
You just turned 84, and I just turned 69.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this past April. You're 60 right now, Teresa?
I'm 69 as of the day after Christmas. I'm a Capricorn.
Young for a woman.
That's young when you're 84, I reckon. 69, but I used to be the young one. I got to do, I was one of the first cloggers for the Bill Monroe stage there.
That's wonderful.
In Ohio County. Yeah, with Jack. I got to be a clogger. What was the name of Johnston? The Lord, he'd say, I imagine. What was his name? Anyway, I guess they're still there with doing. I know they're going to have the Bean Blossom in Indiana, but I don't know what they're doing in Rosine and where Bill Monroe. They were putting together Bill Monroe's. They had his house. I was there and worked with them. They did all that. And then I'd take the Broadcast Music Incorporated packages up to different ones that worked with Bill Monroe and some of the older famous, his mother and his, I guess his son's wife and sister. And I got to meet all them backstage and all that. But you know how we'd have all those people come? Maybe you don't, but I don't know how familiar you are with the Bill Monroe Foundation or all the people, but there in Rosine where he'd come back and play with the Bluegrass Boys at the barn in Rosine. It was a very famous thing. And so we got lots of famous musicians in and out of there, and then they'd pull their RVs up there in the hills of Rosine right there. So there was an annual deal with Doc Mercer. But you saw him on RFD TV, right?
I've seen Mercer's show many, many times on RFD TV. Yeah, I always enjoyed it. He had some really good bluegrass people coming through there.
Was he still telling when you went on there? Was he starting? Did he? I haven't watched it in years because I've been down here.
I haven't either. I don't know if it's currently playing or not, Teresa.
I don't either, because Doc was having trouble with his back like you and me. Me and him both had surgery about the same time on our backs, but yet I was helping him and he was helping me down through the stage and the hills and over to his camper. And then we gradually got the city or county got a cedar cabin like mine. I talked to him about it, but he got a cedar cabin. I had a cedar cabin, recommended it if they were going to put one up there. But I don't know what happened to him and Julie and the kids. I really don't know now. So, but that's our music story, folks. And we had the International Bluegrass Music Incorporated, IBMA, and CMA. I was a member CMA, Country Music Association, IBMA.
Oh yeah.
Did you join any of those, or
no?
You never
no,
went
I didn't. No, I didn't. I did go to Nashville once from Pensacola to pitch some songs, a few songs that I had written, but I didn't. Like most people, I didn't do any good with it. Didn't stay that long. Pardon me.
When did you go? So now you
it
mentioned Pensacola.
would have been. I think it was probably maybe around 1990, sometime in there.
Yeah. Well, let's see. No, where was I? I was over in Hawaii. Yeah, I didn't get up there till, I started driving a truck in 94, and I was assigned to my husband then. So that's how I wound up in the hills of Kentucky, because of the man I had to track for the Navy and Army and DOD and Pentagon. Track him through the hills of Kentucky. The men in black and the helicopters couldn't keep up with him. He was riding all over the place. He turned out his kidneys running Jersey to California. I ran some of those, and it's hard to keep up with him because he wouldn't stop. But he ran for Johnson & Johnson, too. The president there loved Johnson & Johnson. They loved Tom up there in Jersey, running coast 28-hour runs, and ridiculous. Couldn't do it. Well, with you mentioned Pensacola, and I know you've had, let's go into health and wellness, well-being. Now, you had open heart surgery. So, tell us about your Pensacola, and we got to get back to your Army brother, too.
Okay, yeah. About 1989, I had a double bypass surgery at the West Florida Hospital, I believe it was called, there in Pensacola, and did a bypass on me, and so later on, that put me back in shape, and then when I left Florida and went back to Georgia, I had, as the years went by, I had some subsequent surgeries. Like so many people, I had a stent put behind my heart, and then I have a man-made aortic valve now that I had put in Chattanooga, and also had a bleeding problem in the small intestine that they operated and found a blood where it was leaking blood. And so I survived all of that. I've been very, very fortunate, very, very fortunate, as a matter of fact. So I've been doing quite well now for about 3 years, I guess. I've been away from that. So
health and well-being. Your health brought you to Pensacola. Is that what you're saying? To West Florida Hospital?
Yeah, that's
where they do heart surgery.
I had the bypass surgery there, and then I had the most recent heart surgery was in the Chattanooga Memorial Hospital in Chattanooga, Tennessee. It's where I had the aortic valve put in, and a stent behind the heart also was put in there. So it took a while to get over that. And but I did, and I was very fortunate, very blessed to be able to get around again and do what I wanted to do.
What year did you do Pensacola, and what year did you do Chattanooga, and how long did it take you? Did they get you up walking immediately? Because people that hear about heart surgery, and I'm getting up at that age too, because I'm going to be 70, so sometimes they'll fix us. I'm already a cyborg. I got titanium in my neck, but I don't have it in my back. But not yet, no stents yet. So
maybe
how long did it
be,
take you to go ahead
to get over it? Well, it took. Let's see. I would walk. My wife would walk with me there in Pensacola every day for a mile, pretty quickly after we had the surgery, and I'd say maybe 6 or 8 months away from that surgery, I was pretty functional, back to the point where we could still go out and play a little music, or to a fish fry, or go to a nightclub and dance a little bit with the wife and the others.
Oh, my. You're a dancer, too.
Well,
you're just
danced,
a jack of all trades.
We weren't pros. We just had fun,
Is your wife still alive today?
Yes, she's 84 also.
Well, you didn't tell me that. Congratulations.